Topics to be covered in this lesson are nutrition in animals, digestion in human beings, where we will talk about mouth, food pipe, small intestine, large intestine, and absorption of food. Digestion in grass-eating animals. Digestion in amoeba. So here we are going to talk about nutrition in animals. So nutrition again is all about obtaining food. So whenever we talk about living organisms, so something that distinguishes living organisms from the non-living ones like the chair, table, guitar, fans, etc. is the processes which take place inside the body of living organisms. And these processes are known as the life processes. So in our previous lesson, we spoke about the nutrition in plants, that is how plants obtain their food. So what are the different ways by which different plants get their nutrition, which is very important for their survival. So here we will see what are the various ways by which animals can obtain their food. So the life processes which are common to both plants as well as animals, like nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion, control and coordination, reproduction, growth and development, movement. So now all these life processes are common for all living organisms. So when you talk about nutrition, it deals with everything related to food. How the organism gets its food, from where, what are the sources of food for the organism, how the food enters inside the body, how the food gets digested, and then it provides energy to the body. Respiration is all about breathing, where exchange of gases takes place. So now the processes might be little different in plants and animals, but all these life processes occur in both plants and animals. Transportation is about transporting the nutrients and all the essential things to different parts of the body. Excretion is all about throwing wastes from the body. Control and coordination is about synchronization between different parts of the body. Reproduction, so to produce similar organisms with over and over again so that the entire species can be sustained. For example, human beings reproduce to give birth to new human beings. Similarly, elephants, they give birth to elephants. And so on. That is how various species are sustained generations after generations. Growth and development, that is another important aspect of every living organism. We see a plant growing, similarly we also see a living organism growing. So it grows in height, it grows in weight. So overall growth of that organism also is a process which is taking place inside that organism. Movement, the ability of an organism to move from one place to another, which gives its mobility. So these are the various processes which distinguish a living organism from a non-living one. So now when we talk about nutrition, the same question always comes to your mind, that why are we learning about nutrition? Now animals, we have variety of animals. So let's take examples of human beings, because we all will be able to relate to it better, because we all are human beings and we know what are the things that we do. So if you look at human beings, we perform so many different activities. We perform yoga, we do work, we do a lot of physical activity. We also do some jogging, we even think. Now if you see all these activities, what do they need? They need energy. Now if I ask you to say run for 10 kilometers, okay, I ask you to run for 10 kilometers, and what will happen after you run for 10 kilometers? You tend to get tired, right? Now if I ask you again to run for 20 kilometers then again what will happen? You'll become more tired and then you'll be completely weak. Now if after that I ask you to run for another 30 kilometers, you are just not going to do that. Why? Because you do not have any energy left with you. And if you do not have energy, you will not be able to perform work. Now, when I say work, I am not only talking about the physical activity, even the mental activity. So you see here, this little boy is thinking so hard. So his brain is working so much. when he's thinking. So even brain needs a lot of energy to do its job. So even if you sit in one chair for 3 hours, but those 3 hours you are studying, so you are actually consuming a lot of energy. So by the end of those 3 hours, you will again feel tired. You might feel hungry, you might feel thirsty, you feel like eating something, you like to gain some energy. So each of the activities which we do, just think of anything that we do, whether it is eating, it is cooking, it is studying, it is running, dancing, anything. So everything requires energy. In fact, even when we sleep, so we all assume that when we are sleeping, we are actually not, spending any energy that we have. But that is also not true. I do agree that when we sleep, that time we spend less energy as compared to when we are awake. But it is not that we are not spending any energy when we are sleeping. That's because even though we are sleeping, a lot of life processes are still taking place inside our body. For example, we are still breathing. So the process of respiration is still happening. Correct? So even when we are sleeping, the processes like circulation is still happening. So all these processes which are still taking place inside the body, they also need some energy. So some energy is continuously being spent inside our body. And when the energy gets over, we need more energy. So all these activities need energy. That is clear from this. So how do we get this energy when our body spends all the energy that it had? Then how do we get new energy? So the energy comes from the food that we eat. Each of these food items, like different human beings have different food habits. Some of them eat fruits, vegetables, some of them eat cereals like rice, pulses, etc. Some of them even eat other animals like fishes or meat or egg. So everybody has different food habits, but each of these food, what do they provide our body? Each of these provide nutrients to our body. And what are nutrients? These are the substances which are needed for providing us energy, which are needed for our growth, development and sustenance. Now, not only human beings. Now, if you try to think of a similar scenario for any other animal, you think of a cat, you think of a dog, you think of an elephant. Now, all of them, they also do a lot of activities. They keep moving from one place to another. So that involves energy. So they need food. So whatever food they eat, so that is going to provide them the energy. So food is extremely important. If there is no food made available to a living organism, then over a period of time, that organism will become weaker, and if starved for a longer period of time, it can even die. So nutrition is that important. So it is worth spending some time understanding the different modes of nutrition in case of animals. So how do we define nutrition? It is the process of obtaining food and changing it into simple absorbable form. Now, as I said, food for different animals might be different. Some of them might eat solid food, some of them might eat other animals. So all of them will have different food habits, but it is also important that after that food gets inside our body, how that food gets changed into a form which can be easily absorbed by our body, because that's what we want. We just don't want to eat sandwiches and build rack of sandwiches inside our body. We don't want that. We want that sandwich to get inside our body, and then the sandwich should be broken down into some simple form so that it can be absorbed by different parts of our body. It can be absorbed by the cells of our body, and it can provide us some energy. Now, some of the very simple reasons why the organisms need food. First is food contains nutrients, and nutrients are those substances. So nutrients are those substances which provides nourishment that are needed for growth and development of living organisms. So food provides us nutrients. Food also provides us energy, and with that energy we are able to perform all the activities. It also helps in cell repair, cell growth, because all these things, all these processes which happen inside, they need energy, and energy comes from food. It also increases resistance against diseases. Now, when we eat food properly, what happens? You get proper energy. Now, when your body has good amount of energy, when you stay healthy, So your probability of falling ill is less. So basically, if you eat healthy, you stay stronger, your resistance against diseases increases. So that is also one very important role that nutrition plays. So these are the reasons why organisms need food. Now, since we are talking about nutrients, so let's see what exactly are nutrients. These are substances that provide nourishment which are needed for growth and maintenance of life. Now, what comes to your mind when we talk about nutrients? Now, food, when I talk about food, what comes to your mind? Maybe fruits, vegetables, cereals like rice, wheat, pulses, maybe other food items like the dry fruits, fish, eggs, meat, milk, dairy products. So those are the food items for human beings. So what are nutrients? Nutrients are those substances which are present in those food items. For example, carbohydrates. Now, certain food items are rich in carbohydrates. For example, bread, wheat, rice, they are all rich in carbohydrates. Proteins like pulses are very rich in proteins. Vitamins. Now, different vegetables or different fruits, they are rich in different vitamins, and vitamins are very important for our body. Minerals, fats. So all of these are nutrients and our body needs all of them in the right amount. So if you only take in carbohydrates, so then your body is actually becoming deficient in proteins, vitamins and minerals. So you have to take a diet which has all of these in the right amount. Only then you will be able to sustain your body in the right way. So these are the various food items which we take in just to provide nutrients to our body. So now the question is, what are the various modes of nutrition? Like how different animals obtain their food? What are the different ways? Now, forget about animals. All living organisms, they can obtain their food in just two different ways. One is autotrophic mode of nutrition. The other is heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, auto, the word auto means self. Now, some organisms, they are self-dependent in terms of food. That is, they do not depend on any other organism for their food. So, such organisms are called autotrophic. So, they prepare their own food. Whereas heterotrophic means, hetero means those organisms which depend on others for their food. So, they are always dependent on somebody else for their food. Now, let us talk about human beings. Now, what do you think? Humans are autotrophic or heterotrophic? Just think about it. Now, some of you might say that of course we are autotrophic because we prepare our own food. We prepare the vegetables, we prepare so many dishes in our own kitchen, we prepare it ourselves. So, of course, we are autotrophic. Now, if I ask you, whenever you prepare a dish, so what do you use to prepare that dish? The vegetables, the fruits, fish, egg, spices. So from where do you get all these? So do you prepare the vegetable? Do you produce the vegetable? Not really. So basically you are dependent on some plants for the vegetables, fruits, spices, cereals, etc. Similarly, you are dependent on some other animals to get fish, egg, meat, etc. And once you get that from other plants and animals, you just prepare them in an edible way for yourself so that it tastes better. Correct? So basically, you are not preparing your own food completely because you are dependent on other plants and animals for getting the raw materials to your kitchen. So human beings are examples of heterotrophic organisms. So human beings have heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, if you ask example of autotrophic nutrition, so the best example would be the plants, because plants prepare their food by the process of photosynthesis. So they do not depend on any other animal or plant for their food. So plants are autotrophic. Now again, there are some plants which are heterotrophic as well, but most of the plants are autotrophic. Now when we talk about heterotrophic nutrition, because in this lesson we are talking only about the nutrition in animals, and all animals are heterotrophic. So none of the animals can prepare their own food. So all animals depend on plants either directly or indirectly. So this heterotrophic mode of nutrition again can be of many different types. Like some animals might depend on dead and decaying animals for their food, so they have a saprophytic mode of nutrition. Some animals depend on other living organisms for their food, that is, they live inside the body of another living plant or another living animal, so they are said to be parasitic. And holozoic is that mode of nutrition where an organism take in solid food. So solid food intake happens in holozoic nutrition. So all of these fall under the category of heterotrophic, because in each of these the animal is actually dependent on some other animal. So in this case the animal is dependent on some dead animals, in this case the animal is dependent on some other living plant or animal, and in this case the animal is taking in solid food, and that solid food is again obtained from some plant or animal. So they all fall under the category of heterotrophic nutrition. So here these animals depend on others for their food. So examples of animals which follow heterotrophic nutrition are humans, animals, fungi, insectivorous plants. So these are all examples of heterotrophic nutrition. Now we will talk about the holozoic animals more specifically. Why are we talking about holozoic animals? Because most of the animals are holozoic, that is, they take in solid food. So intake of complex matter as food. So whatever we eat, that is in a very complex form. So that food cannot directly provide us energy. So that food needs to be converted into some simple form inside our body, and only then it will be able to provide us energy. So you look at the screen and you see a lot of animals, and all of them are holozoic animals. That is, they eat something which is a very complex organic matter. So that is their food. So here again, these holozoic animals are also of many different types. For example, here you see goat, rabbit, horse. These are all those animals which directly eat plants. So these are also called herbivores. Why? Because they are directly dependent on plants. Here you see tiger and lion. So they are called carnivores because they feed on animals which feed on plants. So basically a tiger might eat up a deer, and a deer eats plants. So basically these carnivores, they can eat up the herbivores. So they eat other animals. And you have a third category called omnivores. So human beings fall under this category. So omnivores are those animals which eat both plants as well as animals. Like human beings, they eat plants, like plant or plant products. They also eat animals like fish or meat. So they eat other animals also. So they are examples of omnivores. Even pigs and rats are also examples of omnivores. So these are all holozoic animals because whatever they eat, that is in a complex form. For example, when we eat any dish, for example, if you eat a curry, maybe egg curry, okay, so that egg curry which you are eating, that will not provide you energy directly or instantly. So that egg curry is in a complex form. So once it gets inside your body, it needs to be broken down into the simplest form, and then in that simplest form it will be able to provide you energy. So if you look at it, all these are heterotrophs. That is, they have heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and all of them depend on plants either directly or indirectly. So the herbivores are dependent on the autotrophs, that is the plants, directly, but the carnivores are dependent indirectly on plants. That is, the carnivores, they do not eat plants directly, but they eat animals which in turn eat plants. So all the animals are directly or indirectly dependent on plants. So now we will look at the various types of holozoic animals which we have discussed just now. So the first category was herbivores, which feed only on plants like cow, goat, horse, rabbit. The next category is carnivores, which feed on flesh, that is, they feed on other animals like lion and tiger. And the third category is omnivores, which is like a combination of both. They feed on plants also and they feed on animals also. And the best examples are humans. And crow, pig, rats are also examples of omnivores. So these are all different types of holozoic animals. So now we are going to understand the entire process of Holozoic nutrition in more detail. Like all these animals, they take in complex food. So what happens to that complex food when it gets inside our body, and how that complex food provides energy to our body. So we are going to look at that entire process. So that is what we will discuss under Holozoic nutrition. So this Holozoic nutrition involves multiple steps. So let us look at the various steps which are involved in Holozoic nutrition. Ingestion, which is the first step, that is the intake of food. So that complex food is being taken inside the body. So that is the first step called ingestion. In means anything taken in. Next is digestion. This is a very important step because this is the step during which the complex food is being broken down into a simple form. And how this process happens, that is not that simple, but we are going to discuss that in detail. So there are a lot of enzymes which help in this process of digestion, which helps in the breakdown of complex food into simple form. And finally, the next step, which is absorption, that is the simple food now is absorbed by the body. And how it is absorbed by different parts of the body, it is transported through the blood or the lymph. So lymph is also a fluid like blood which flows throughout the body. So we will not get into the details of all those, but it is like how blood flows through the entire body, right? So if you want to transport something to one particular part of the body, what you can do is you just dissolve that substance in the blood. So blood will anyways go to each and every part of the body, so that particular substance will get transported to different parts of the body. So that's how the concept of transportation happens. So now the first step is complex food taken inside. Next step is complex food broken down into simple form. Third step is simple form is now absorbed by the body. Finally, assimilation, that is the absorbed food is utilized for energy needed for various activities. In fact, that is the reason why we have taken in food, because food is going to provide us energy. So in assimilation, the food which has been absorbed, that food is going to provide energy. So that energy production part happens during assimilation. And finally, egestion. So egestion, like ingestion is taking in, egestion means giving out. Now whatever food is not digested, so all those undigested food is thrown out of the body. Now why not all the food gets digested? Because the digestive enzymes, they also have certain limitations. They can break down only some substances. Now there might be certain components in the food which were not being broken down by those digestive enzymes also. So what will happen to those complex parts? Because anyways that is not going to get absorbed or assimilated. So that becomes kind of waste for the body. So that is thrown out as a part of egestion. So these are the 5 important steps which are involved in the process of Holozoic nutrition. So now we are going to discuss each of this step in detail one by one. Now, before we talk about these steps in human beings, let us start with some other animals. Let us start with some simpler animals, because human being is a quite complex animal. So let's start with amoeba. So amoeba is a unicellular animal, that is just one cell makes it all, that's all. Now in human beings, we have multiples, thousands and thousands of cells inside our body. But in amoeba, just one cell, and that one cell does all the job. It helps in eating food, it helps in excreting out waste products, it helps in moving from one place to another. So everything is being done by just one cell. So it is a unicellular organism. And this also has Holozoic nutrition. So this also takes complex food. So that is also very interesting, the way amoeba takes food inside its body just with the help of this one cell. So how exactly it happens? So in case of amoeba also, the nutrition is not one step, it also involves a lot of steps. The first step is again ingestion, and ingestion, that is intake of food, happens with the help of pseudopodia. What is pseudopodia? Pseudo means false and podia means feet. So it is like a false feet, not the true feet but false feet. So do you see anything which looks like feet in amoeba? Not really. It is just, it doesn't even have a very specific shape. It has an irregular shape and it is very flexible in changing its shape. So pseudopodia is nothing but these extensions which you see. So these are extensions of the body which actually crawls on the surface, and that's how it moves from one place to another. So pseudopodia is extension of the body which acts like a false feet because it helps the animal to move from one place to another. So this pseudopodia also helps in intake of food, and this process of intake of food is called phagocytosis. This is very important and this is very interesting as well. So here we can see the exact process how amoeba takes in food. So see, this is the amoeba. So you see, this is the body of amoeba. As I said, the shape keeps changing. So you see, the shape got changed in such a way that the food particle got trapped here. So this is basically the food particle and this is the amoeba. Right? So you see, the amoeba changed its shape such that the food particle got trapped. And then again it changed its shape in such a way that the food particle got trapped inside. So basically what happened by the end of this three things? So the food entered inside the body of amoeba. Ingestion happened. So this ingestion could happen due to the movement of the pseudopodia. So this type of movement which helps amoeba to move from one place to another is due to these pseudopodia, and that is why they are called false feet. Now once the food particle enters inside, then comes digestion. Now there are a lot of enzymes present inside the amoeba which are released from the food vacuole. So inside the amoeba you can see some structures called food vacuoles. Here you can see. So these digestive enzymes then help in breaking down the complex food into simpler forms. Now once the food is broken down, so this type of digestion is called intracellular digestion. Why? Because it takes place inside the cell. So this entire body of amoeba is nothing but just one cell. So the process of digestion is happening inside this one cell. That is why it is called intracellular digestion. Once it is digested, then comes the turn of absorption. So the digested food diffuses to the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is nothing but the fluid which is present inside the cell. So here you have a fluid like structure. So that fluid again, it is just like the blood which we have inside our body. So blood moves from one place to another. So this fluid will also like move from one place to another, and that's how the fluid will carry the digested food to different parts of amoeba. Then the fourth step, assimilation, where the absorbed food is stored and utilized later for synthesis. Now once the digested food is absorbed and it is all ready, so the food will be utilized as and when required. So we do not use all the food right away. So we keep it in store, and whenever it is required, we utilize some part of it. So that's how it is utilized for energy, because it is not necessary that the amoeba needs all the energy just at once. So it will be needing energy every time it does some work. So as it needs energy, similarly the absorbed food can be utilized. And finally, egestion, where the undigested food is expelled out through the cell membrane. So cell membrane is nothing but this wall which surrounds the cell, that is cell membrane. So whichever food is not digested, that is thrown out of the body. So you see, in amoeba also the steps remain the same. It is just that since the structural organization of the animal is quite different from that of human beings, like human beings are a lot more complex. So amoeba being simpler, the way each of these steps happen, that is a little different. But when we talk about human beings, again the same steps will happen as a part of holozoic nutrition, but the way each of these happen, they are going to be different because the structural organization inside the. So let us now discuss about the nutrition in human beings. So here we will see that the process is going to be little more complex, in fact quite complex when compared to amoeba. So in human beings also the nutrition is holozoic type, that is intake of solid complex food. And the nutrition involves the same 5 steps, that is ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. So we will learn it step by step. So the entire process happens through a lot of organs. There are different organs which perform specific functions. So let us start with the alimentary canal. So what is alimentary canal? It is a 9 meters long structure extending from mouth to anus. So mouth is the place through which intake of food takes place. So we eat anything through our mouth. So mouth, how does your mouth look like? So if you open your mouth, you can see a cavity inside, an open space inside. So whenever you eat something, what do? You chew it, right? So basically mouth is the gate, or you can say it is like a door through which the entry is allowed. So entry happens through the mouth. So this alimentary canal starts from mouth and it ends at anus, and this is where the anus is. And through the anus happens the exit. Exit of what? Exit of the undigested food material. So basically ingestion starts from here and egestion happens here. So in between this, if you see this tube-like structure from here. So from here alimentary canal starts, then this tube-like structure becomes swollen and forms this structure. Then it gets coiled like this, and finally this coiled structure again goes into this green coiled structure, and finally it ends at the anus. So basically starting from mouth till anus, this is just one tube. But the same tube, somewhere it is thick, somewhere it is thin, somewhere it is extremely coiled. So its form changes, but basically it is one single tube. And this tube is called the alimentary canal, and it is 9 meters long. Now you might wonder that how can a tube which is 9 meters long get accommodated inside our body? That's because in this part, if you see, it is highly coiled, right? So if you coil a tube, it will get accommodated even within a body which is not even a few meters, right? This alimentary canal consists of various organs. So the first organ is mouth, then comes the buccal cavity. Buccal cavity is also known as the oral cavity, or the cavity inside the mouth. So here you have the buccal cavity. So this is the buccal cavity or the oral cavity. Next is the esophagus. Esophagus is also known as the food pipe. So this pipe-like structure which you see here, this is the esophagus or the food pipe. So it carries the food. Next is the stomach. So you see esophagus ends in a swollen bag-like structure. So this swollen structure is the stomach. From stomach, the tube extends into the small intestine, and this extremely coiled yellow colored structure, this is the small intestine. And this small intestine then goes into the large intestine. The green colored structure here, you see, this is also a coiled structure, and this is called the large intestine. So now we will talk about each part of this alimentary canal one by one. Now as we learn about each of these parts, we will also simultaneously learn about the steps of the Holozoic nutrition. So we will see that at each part, a specific part of digestion takes place. At a certain part of the alimentary canal, the absorption takes place, and so on and so forth. So let's start with the mouth and buccal cavity. So mouth is the slit bounded by movable lips. So the lips are like the window panes. Now when you want to open the window, you just open the window panes, and then anything can enter through that window. So similarly, when you open your lips, so your mouth gets opened and anything can enter inside your mouth. So the intake of food takes place through mouth. So basically, which is this process? This is nothing but the process of ingestion. So the first step happens through mouth. Next is the buccal cavity, that is the oral cavity. Now you open your mouth. Mouth just acts like the door. Now through that door, a person has entered. So person here refers to the food. So the food has entered through the mouth. Then where it goes into the entire cavity inside your mouth. So where your teeth are present, where your tongue is present. So you see there you have some hollow space, right? So that is where your food actually goes. So that cavity is called buccal cavity. So in this buccal cavity, you again have some important organs like teeth. Teeth are present there. You have saliva. If you want to feel it, just try to see what do you have inside your mouth even when you are not eating or drinking anything. You can see some fluid-like structure, some watery substance always present inside your mouth. So that watery substance is called saliva. And this saliva plays a very, very important role in the process of digestion. You have your tongue. So the tongue, teeth, saliva, all these are present in the buccal cavity, and trust me, they all play very important roles in this process of digestion. So how teeth helps? Now teeth are like sharp structures, right? So and with these sharp teeth, you actually are able to crush the food into pieces, because as I said, the first job of, now once ingestion has happened, the next step is digestion. So the next job is to break down the complex food into simple form. Right? So now whatever complex food you have taken inside your mouth, first of all, you have to physically break it. So in that physical breaking process, the teeth helps, because teeth are sharp pointed structures. So if you actually observe all the 32 teeth inside your mouth, you'll see some of them have very pointed ends so that it helps in biting. Some of them have flat wide ends so that they can crush the food, they can help in chewing. So that means different teeth are structured in such a way that all of them together can help in crushing down complex food into smaller pieces. Then comes saliva. So what is the purpose of having that watery fluid inside our mouth? Now this watery fluid gets mixed with the food which we eat, and therefore the food gets moistened. So the food becomes little fluidy. The food becomes softer, right? And also this saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase, and this is a digestive enzyme because it helps to convert starch into sugar. What is starch? Now starch or sugar, both of them are carbohydrates, but starch is a complex form of carbohydrate. It is a polysaccharide. So polysaccharide means a bigger carbohydrate which has many simple sugars. So a lot of simple sugars together form a polysaccharide. So starch is a complex form of carbohydrate, but sugar is the simplest form of carbohydrate. So this enzyme helps to break down the complex carbohydrates into simpler ones. So at least one nutrient. Now the food which you are eating, that might contain carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins and so many things. So at least one of those nutrients got converted into a simpler form with the help of salivary amylase, which is an enzyme that is present in the saliva of your mouth. Then comes tongue. Now tongue contains the taste buds which help to sense the taste of the food. Now why do we cook food? Now if we want, what we can do is we can just directly take fruits and vegetables from the trees and we can just start chewing them. If somebody wants to eat fish or egg, they can just eat it raw. But that's what we don't do. Why? Because we have a tongue and the tongue can feel the taste of the food. So we want to make it tasty, and that is why we mix it with spices and we want to improve the taste of the food. So basically tongue, that is one purpose of tongue. Besides this, tongue also helps in actually crushing down the food. So the food is, by movement of the tongue, the food can also be moved well inside the mouth so that it gets mixed with the saliva properly, and once its job is done in the oral cavity, it can then go down the esophagus. So the movement of the tongue helps in proper mixing of the food with the saliva. So you see, inside the buccal cavity itself, the process of digestion starts. So now that we have spoken about the important parts inside the oral cavity, let us discuss about them in more detail, especially teeth, because they play a very crucial role in the process of digestion. Now in teeth, there are two types of dentition that are possible or that happens in animals. So now what do we mean by dentition? Dentition means how many sets of teeth a particular organism has. Now they are of two types. One is diphyodont dentition. In di means two. The word di means two. So in those animals which have diphyodont dentition, they have two sets of teeth. That means those animals will have one set of teeth first, and then all of those teeth will fall and they will go off, and then again a new set of teeth will be formed. So in their entire lifetime, 2 sets of teeth will appear. So these type of animals are called to have diphyodont dentition. So this type of dentition is seen in most of the mammals. So it is more common in the mammals. So as I said, di means 2, phyo means growth, and dont means teeth. So teeth grows 2 times in an animal's lifetime. So what are those 2 sets of teeth? Like in case of human beings, you would have heard that when the babies are born, so immediately over a couple of months, their teeth start appearing. So those teeth are nothing but temporary milk teeth, because those teeth, they are temporary. They do not remain throughout lifetime. By the time the kids are around 8 to 10 years of age, these temporary teeth start falling off, and they are all replaced by a permanent set of adult teeth, and these teeth are permanent. So they are going to be there throughout life. Now once they start falling off, then no teeth will come up to replace them. So now the number of milk teeth which appears in case of children are 20. So a total of 20 milk teeth appears, and these 20 milk teeth gets replaced by a total of 32 permanent adult teeth. So this type of dentition, where in a lifetime, first you get 1 set of teeth, and then those teeth go off and again they are replaced by another set of teeth, that is called diphyodont dentition. The other type of dentition is the one where only 1 set of teeth is formed throughout lifetime. So there is no concept of milk teeth and adult teeth, and this is also seen in some animals. Now again, another speciality about the teeth of human beings is that they have thecodont teeth. Now what is the meaning of thecodont? The teeth in human beings, they are set in sockets of jaw bones. So if you try to observe your tooth closely, you will see that each tooth, this is how a tooth will look like. So this is the tooth, and this tooth is actually fit on a socket. So it is fitted in the socket. So this is like a socket, like how you have a plug and a socket. So you see here you have the plug point, and this is the socket. So the plug actually fits into the socket. Similarly here, the tooth exactly fits into the socket, and this socket is nothing but the jaw bone. So if you try to observe your tooth in the mirror, you will be able to see the jaw bones which are present below, which are kind of reddish in color, pinkish reddish in color. So the way a plug fits into the wall socket, in a very similar way, the tooth also fits into the jaw bone socket, and this type of tooth are known as thecodont. So now I just spoke about the permanent and primary teeth. So let us see what are these. So when you talk about the primary teeth, so they are the deciduous teeth or the temporary teeth. So they are not going to be there throughout. So it appears and during childhood days, like when a baby is born, within a couple of months, they start appearing around when the baby is around 6 months of age, and they later get replaced by permanent teeth. So they get replaced somewhere around 8 to 10 years of age. So at this age, they get replaced by permanent teeth. So they are total 20 in number. So total 20 permanent teeth, primary teeth exists. Now, as I was telling some time back, that if you look at all the teeth which we have inside our mouth, not all of them are exactly similar in structure. So they have different structures and they have specific functions to perform. So based on their structure and function, there are 4 types of teeth which exists inside our mouth. Now what are the 4 types? The 4 types of teeth are molars, premolars, incisors, and canine. So these are the 4 types of teeth that exist inside our mouth. So when you talk about the primary teeth, so the 20 total primary teeth which are present, out of them 8 of them are incisors, 4 are canine, and 8 are molars. So no premolars exist in the primary teeth set. So these incisors are present in front of the mouth. So the teeth which are present exactly in front of the mouth. So whenever you smile, the teeth which are visible, the front ones, they are the incisors. Whereas molars and premolars, they are present at the corners, and they are specifically used for biting purpose. Now, in case of permanent teeth, they never get replaced, so they will be there just forever. However, they might also fall if you do not take proper care of teeth. They might also fall quite early than expected, but then they never get replaced. So they are total 32 in number. That is, in their case, incisors, canines, molars, they are present. On top of these, premolars are also present. So here you see, molars, earlier they were only 8, but now there are 12 molars. Premolars, earlier it was not at all there, but now there are 8 premolars, and that's how the total number of teeth increases from 20 to 32. So let us now quickly discuss the 4 types of teeth. So let us look at the different types of teeth which are present inside our mouth. So the first we will talk about are the incisors, canine, premolars and molars. So these are the 4 types of teeth which are present. So let us learn about each of them. So we'll start with incisors. So there are total 8 incisors present inside the mouth. Now when I say 8, 4 of them are on the top and 4 are on the bottom. So in fact, these are the first teeth to erupt. So they grow somewhere around the age of 6 months. So basically, the front 4 teeth on the top and the front 4 teeth. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top, and again 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom. So these 8 teeth are incisors. And now in kids also, they grow when they are around 6 months old, and then again that primary teeth set is gone. And then again the new, in the permanent set, again these are the first ones to grow when they are 6 to 8 years of old. So they are located at the center. They help in biting food. So that is why you will see that these teeth, the front teeth, they have quite a sharp, not a very sharp end as such, but yeah, not very thick end as well. So they are just used for biting food, not for chewing exactly. The next set is canine, and they are total 4 in number. So where are they located? They are just located next to the incisors. So this 1, 2, 3 and 4. So these are the canines, and they are the sharpest teeth. So they are very sharp. So if you want, you can just check inside your mouth, and you will see that these teeth, they have a sharp end like this. So you can feel the pointed end. So their purpose is to tear food. Now since they have a very sharp end, they can actually tear out things while chewing. The third types are premolars, and they are again 8 in number. So total 4 on the top and 4 on the down, towards the down. So these teeth, now they help in actually chewing stuffs. So if you look at the premolars, they help in grinding food, and they are like quite strong as well. So premolars are here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So these are the premolars, and these premolars, they do not exist in the primary set of teeth. So in kids they do not exist, but when the permanent teeth set come up, that time these premolars are present and they help in grinding. So that is why you would have seen that when we eat something, so when you bite it with the front teeth, but when you are chewing it, so then you actually do it from your sides of your mouth. That's because that is where the premolars and the molars are located. And finally, the molars, they are broad chewing surfaces with multiple cusps. So as you go towards the end, you see that your teeth, each tooth has multiple cusps. One like this, one like this. So you basically feel as if they are 2 teeth. One on the front, one on the back, and both of them have been joined. That's how you feel when you reach the molars. So these molars have a very broad chewing surface. So if you look at their surface here on the top, it is quite broad, and that's how they help in chewing. Now these molars can be further classified as first molars, second molars and third molars, because you have a total 12 molars. So here you have 3, this side you have 3, again this side you have 3, and here you have 3. So that's how you have three sets of, total 12 molars, and these molars are again first molars here, second molars here, and third molars are the cornermost, which are also known as the wisdom teeth. So these wisdom teeth, they generally appear at the last. So they appear even when a person is around 25 or 30 years of age, or even at an older age. These the third molars appear, that is the wisdom tooth, they appear. Now, as I said, the first molars, here we have the first molars. This is the first molar, here also you have the first molars here, right? So they are total 4 in number. They help in grinding food. So they are the first molars, and these first molars, they appear when a person is around 6 years of age. So that is the time when the first molars appear. So out of these 3 types of molars, first molars appear at first. Then appears the second molars. They are also 4 in number, so they are just next to the first molars here. So these second molars, they also, all of these molars, they all help in grinding food because of their flat, broad surface. And finally, the third molars, which are like the cornermost teeth on each side of your mouth. These are also known as wisdom teeth, and they are the last ones to develop. Sometimes they don't even come at all, and sometimes they find it, they give a lot of trouble while coming up. So there are a lot of issues faced by a lot of people with the wisdom teeth. So that's how the arrangement of teeth is inside our mouth, and due to their special shape and structure, for example, canines being very sharp, they help in tearing food. Molars and premolars being very strong and having a very flat biting surface, they help in grinding food. Whereas the incisors being the front teeth, they help in biting food. So all of them have got different structures and therefore different purposes. But all the 32 teeth together, they help us in breaking down complex food into simple food particles. Now, when we talk about teeth, it is very important that proper care of teeth is taken. That's because tooth decay can take place very easily, because our teeth are actually dealing with food particles. Now, what happens is when we chew food particles, there are chances that food particles get accumulated in some or the other corner of the teeth. Now, if we do not clean our teeth properly, there are chances that the food particles will remain accumulated there for a couple of days or a couple of months, and gradually that area being warm and moist will allow microorganisms to grow. For example, bacteria might grow there and they might start living there, and these bacteria then later can cause breakdown of sugars to release acids, and that's how they can damage your teeth. So in order to protect your teeth, it is very important that you clean your teeth properly. You brush at least twice a day. Whenever you eat something, you make sure that you rinse your mouth properly, so that there are no leftover food particles present inside your teeth. So that's how we can take proper care. So now that we have discussed mouth and buccal cavity, it's turn for pharynx and esophagus, the next parts of the alimentary canal. So let's talk about pharynx. Now, what did we see till now? We saw that the food entered through the mouth, then it went into the buccal cavity where it got mixed with the saliva, it was broken down into smaller pieces by teeth. Now what happens to the food? Now this food moves into the pharynx. So pharynx is a common passage for food and air. So it connects to food pipe and windpipe. So this portion, so from where do we breathe in? So we breathe through our nostrils, right? So you see, this is how we will breathe in. So the air will be moving through this part and the food will be moving through this part, correct? So this common passage for both food as well as air, that is called pharynx. So pharynx is going to connect to the food pipe as well as to the windpipe. So the windpipe is going to be somewhere just behind the food pipe. So that's how it is. So the air which we breathe in, that will get into the windpipe, and the food which we eat, that will get into the food pipe. So for both of them, there is one common entry, that is pharynx, and pharynx will take a decision. If it is food, it will send it to the food pipe. If it is air, then it will send it to the windpipe. but no digestion happens in pharynx. So pharynx is just like you can say it is like an entry gate where if you go to see a fair or if you go to see some event, so what happens at the entry? So at the entry gate, a person is standing there who checks your tickets and then allow you to go inside. So similarly here also, pharynx will just pass food into the food pipe and air into the wind pipe. So that is the only purpose of pharynx. So no digestion happens here. So pharynx will connect, so it is like a common thing which is connected to nose also, which is also connected to mouth. So it is like connected to both the parts. So let's see, where does the food go after passing through the pharynx? Of course, it goes into the food pipe, which is the esophagus. So this is the food pipe. So after passing through the pharynx, it moves into the food pipe. And what happens in the food pipe? So this food pipe helps in the downward movement of food. So if you see pharynx and esophagus, these are the two parts of the alimentary canal where no actual digestion happens. They just help in moving the food to the place where digestion is going to happen. So they actually help in transporting the food from mouth to stomach. So they act as the road between the two. So in esophagus, they have some muscles involved on the walls of the esophagus or the food pipe, and these muscles make some movement which is called peristalsis. So peristalsis is the name of the movement which is due to expansion and contraction of the muscles on the inner walls of the food pipe. And this movement pushes the food downward, and that's how the food moves in the downward direction, and finally it reaches the stomach. And now here starts the main story of digestion. What happens in the stomach? So stomach expands. Stomach is like a bag which is capable of expansion. So as long as there is nothing inside it, it is like a small pouch. Now when you start putting things inside this pouch, it keeps on expanding. So it is capable of expansion, but then yes, again there is a limitation to its expansion. So as we keep eating food, our stomach keeps expanding to accommodate the food particles. And this expansion is possible due to the presence of muscular wall of the stomach. So the muscles actually expand, and that's how it creates space for the food. Inside the stomach are present some specific enzymes which help in the process of digestion. And these enzymes are produced or secreted by the glands called gastric glands. And what are they? Pepsin enzymes, hydrochloric acid, mucus. These are some of the very important things which are present inside the stomach and which play a significant role in the process of digestion. So basically what happens is, this hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, which is present in the stomach, this acid plays a very important role. Now one function that it performs is that the food which we eat that might contain some tiny germs or some impurities, so they get destroyed by the action of this acid. So that is one function which it performs. The other function is that this hydrochloric acid actually activates the enzyme pepsin. Now this enzyme pepsin, how it helps? It helps in the digestion of proteins. It helps to break down proteins into simpler forms, like how you had the salivary amylase inside the mouth, which breaks down the complex carbohydrates into simple carbohydrates. Similarly, here in the stomach, the complex proteins are broken down into their simplest forms. So that is done by this enzyme pepsin. And this enzyme pepsin becomes active only in presence of hydrochloric acid. Otherwise, this pepsin is present in the form of pepsinogen. So it is actually present in the form of pepsinogen, and this pepsinogen is inactive. It is not active. So how it becomes active? It becomes active in acidic environment, and this acidic environment is created due to the presence of HCl. And in acidic environment, pepsinogen gets converted into pepsin, and pepsin is an active enzyme. And what does pepsin do? Pepsin helps to convert the complex proteins which are present inside our food into simpler proteins or less complex proteins. So what are those less complex proteins? Maybe proteases or peptones. So they are less complex. right? So this happens in presence of this enzyme pepsin. So that is the role of pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Now what about this mucus? Now the small amount of mucus which is present, mucus is a slimy substance, slippery like substance. So mucus provides protection. Protection to whom? Now as you saw that since stomach contains so much of acid, it contains a lot of hydrochloric acid. So the entire environment inside the stomach is acidic, which is favorable for the action of pepsin. But the gastric juice is so strong that it can digest the stomach itself. Now under such acidic environment, when you have active enzymes like pepsin, it is also possible that the digestion becomes so strong that the stomach itself gets digested. Because all our body parts, they are also made up of what? They are also made up of amino acids. They are also made up of proteins. So therefore, in order to protect the stomach from being digested, these mucus are present. So mucus lubricates and protects the epithelium layer of the stomach. So this layer of the stomach is surrounded by mucus, which actually helps in protecting the stomach. So it also lubricates the surface of the stomach so that the food which gets digested here can further move down to the next part. So here you see that in stomach, a good amount of digestion happens here. So we saw that digestion of carbohydrates take place in the mouth with the help of salivary amylase. Digestion of proteins takes place in the stomach with the help of pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Now that's why, have you ever heard of people complaining of acidity? People say that I'm having pain in my stomach. Why? Because I ate something which was too oily, or I ate something outside or some junk, and that's why I'm getting acidity. So what is this meaning of acidity? When the amount of hydrochloric acid in the stomach increases too much, then comes the problem of acidity. So how do you solve that problem? By taking some antacid tablets. So when you take the antacid tablets, so the antacid tablet is like they act just opposite to acid. So they try to reduce the acidic environment of the stomach, and that's how they resolve the problem. So that's about what happens in the stomach. So in stomach, digestion happens with the help of gastric enzymes. So all these enzymes which are released from the gastric glands, they are called gastric enzymes. So then here when we talk about stomach, now here it is important to talk about some of the very important digestive glands. So one such digestive gland is liver. In fact, liver is the largest gland in the human body. What is a gland? Gland is any such organ which secretes hormones, enzymes, and these secretions play a very important role in our body. So liver secretes bile juice which is stored in the gallbladder. Where is liver? So this is liver. The red colored structure which you see, that is liver, and this liver is going to secrete bile juice, and the bile juice is stored in the gallbladder. So here the green colored structure which you see here, that is gallbladder. Now what is the function of bile juice? This juice helps in digestion of fats. So carbohydrate is done, proteins was also done in the stomach. So we are left out with fats. So the digestion of fats happen with the help of bile juice, and this bile juice is secreted by liver and it is stored in the gallbladder. So this juice makes the medium alkaline. So alkaline is just the opposite of acid. So you have something called acid, you have something called base. Base is nothing but alkaline. So it is basic in nature, bile juice. So what does it do in the basic environment? It activates the action of pancreatic and intestinal enzymes. That is, these small intestine also releases certain enzymes. So these intestinal enzymes need a basic environment. They do not want acidic environment for their function. Similarly, the enzymes which are released by the pancreas. Pancreas is the other gland we are going to talk about. So just behind the stomach, you can see a green colored leaf-like structure. So this green colored structure is nothing but the pancreas. So pancreas also secretes some pancreatic enzymes. So all these enzymes help in digestion of food. Pancreatic enzymes, intestinal enzymes, bile juice from liver. So basically bile juice will help to digest the fats and convert them into less complex forms. And what about the pancreas? It is the second largest gland. It secretes pancreatic juice. So the enzymes which are secreted from the pancreas, that is the pancreatic enzymes, it contains all types of enzymes which can digest both carbohydrates, proteins as well as fats. So it has trypsin which helps in digestion of proteins, pancreatic amylase which helps in digestion of starch, and pancreatic lipase which helps in digestion of fats. So if you see, now you might ask that just now you told that in the mouth itself the carbohydrates gets digested by salivary amylase. Now what I said was, of course the digestion of carbohydrates happen there, but the digestion doesn't get completed. It is not that the carbohydrates get completely digested. Still some portion of it remain undigested. So they are again acted upon by pancreatic amylase. Right? So whichever is left over undigested carbohydrate, proteins or fats, they are all acted upon by these pancreatic enzymes. So all these pancreatic enzymes and also the enzymes from the intestines, they need an alkaline environment, and that alkaline environment is provided by the bile juice. So now if you see here, the liver is connected to the gallbladder. Liver secretes bile juice which is stored in this gallbladder. So if you see here you have a tube-like structure which is connected to the stomach. So basically this secretion of the bile juice, it reaches this place. Correct? Similarly, if you look at the pancreas, the green colored structure behind, that is also connected to the stomach and the intestine here. So that portion where the food enters from stomach to intestine, so at that region, both the pancreatic enzymes as well as the bile juice, they also join that area. So basically, the food particles are exposed to the pancreatic enzymes and the bile juice. So that's how the environment becomes alkaline, pancreatic enzymes become active. So again digestion happens due to the action of pancreatic enzymes, and then the food enters into the small intestine. So small intestine is this orange colored structure which is extremely coiled. So that is small intestine. So this small intestine again is going to secrete a lot of intestinal enzymes. So food reaches from stomach to intestine through the sphincter muscle. So this muscle is like a muscle which allows food to enter from stomach to intestine, but it doesn't allow the backward movement. It doesn't allow food to enter from intestine to stomach. It doesn't allow that. So in this small intestine, if you see, it is extremely coiled tube and it has three parts, that is duodenum, jejunum and ileum. These are the three parts. So duodenum is the first part which is immediately connected after the stomach. So it has a common bile and pancreatic ducts opens here and it is U-shaped. So here you see, this is the shape. This is the first one from here. This part basically is the duodenum. So if you see in the duodenum, the pancreatic duct is opening and as well as the bile duct is also opening. So this is the bile duct and this one is the pancreatic duct. Both of them open here. The next part is jejunum. So this part is jejunum. And finally the last part is ileum. So as you see, the width also keeps decreasing. Duodenum is more wide, jejunum is narrower and ileum is even more narrow. And small intestine is a place where digestion happens because a lot of intestinal enzymes are released. Here also the pancreatic enzymes along with the bile juice help in digestion, because this digestion due to pancreatic enzymes and bile juice also happens in the duodenum area, this area. Right? And besides that, the intestinal glands also secrete enzymes to digest carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So if I try to sum up the entire process of digestion, it started from mouth where salivary amylase digested the carbohydrates. Then it reached the stomach where digestion happened, and there the pepsin digested the proteins. Then it reached the duodenum, that is the first part of the small intestine. There the bile juice created the environment and also it started digesting fats. And at the same time, the pancreatic enzymes and the intestinal enzymes, they also started digesting the leftover carbohydrates as well as the proteins. So basically in small intestine, complete digestion happens. Whatever food material has to be digested, they get digested in the small intestine. Beyond small intestine, no further digestion happens. So the start of digestion is at the buccal cavity, and the end of digestion happens at the small intestine. After this, what happens? Now digestion is over. So ingestion is over, digestion is over. The next step is absorption. So absorption also happens at the small intestine. Now in small intestine, there are some special hair-like structures called villi, which are present on the inner walls of the small intestine. And these hair-like structure, they actually, when you have a lot of hair-like structure on a surface, so that helps in absorption. Now let us suppose in one case you have a surface like this and it has to absorb something. In another case, you have a surface like this on which you have thin hair-like structures. So the overall surface area increases in this case, therefore the net absorption increases in this case. So the same thing holds true for small intestine also. Due to the presence of a large number of hair-like structures, the overall absorption increases, and that's how small intestine helps to absorb the food here. Now the villi, on one end it will absorb the digested food, and on the other end they are connected to the blood vessels, right? So that's how they will pass on the absorbed food to the blood vessels, because finally the blood vessels need to carry the absorbed food to different parts of the body. So villi acts as a connecting link between the absorbed food. So this is basically the digested food. So the digested food is absorbed by the villi, and on the other end it is connected to blood vessels. So the absorbed food is then sent to the blood vessels. So that's how villi plays a very important role. Now you understand how important small intestine is. In small intestine, first of all, complete digestion of food takes place. Absorption of food also takes place in small intestine. So we are done with ingestion, digestion and absorption. Now the length of the small intestine varies from animal to animal depending upon their food habits, because now some animals eat more plants or more grasses. Now grasses contain more cellulose. So cellulose again take more time to get digested, correct? So for such animals, they have a very long small intestine. But when compared to that, those animals which eat flesh, now flesh do not contain cellulose. So flesh is easier to be digested. So in those animals, the length of the small intestine is small, because small intestine is performing one of the most crucial role in the entire process of digestion. Next comes the large intestine. What does the large intestine do? This green colored structure which you see here, that is large intestine. So here happens the egestion part. Egestion, that is the undigested food needs to be sent out of the body. So egestion happens here. So all the food that remains undigested, that is passed on to the large intestine. So this large intestine, if you look at its width, it is wider than the small intestine. Small intestine was quite narrow. Compared to that, large intestine is wider. This is also divided into two parts. One is colon and the other is rectum. So colon is the inverted U-shaped structure. So this part is colon. So starting from here till here, this inverted U-shaped structure, this structure is colon. And what is rectum? Rectum is this terminal part. So this part is rectum. So rectum is that part where all the excess water, now whatever is undigested food, that comes into the large intestine. Now as it passes through the large intestine, all the water from that food is absorbed, because water is essential for our body. Our body should always have enough water, because lack of water can cause dehydration, correct? So all the excess water from the undigested food is absorbed in these portions, and finally the undigested food is secreted or excreted out through the anus in the form of feces. So that is why the feces which is given out of the anus, that is solidified, because all the water has already been absorbed by the large intestine. So this is how the entire process of Holozoic nutrition takes place in case of human beings. Now let us have a quick review on whatever we have discussed about the entire process of nutrition in humans. Now it was a complex process, I agree, but I hope that you have been able to catch it up. So let's have a quick review. Now the process starts with our mouth, and through mouth happens ingestion or intake of food. Now once the food enters inside the mouth, then it gets into the oral cavity or the buccal cavity. And in this buccal cavity, we have saliva, and saliva secretes an enzyme called salivary amylase. And this salivary amylase helps in digestion of carbohydrates. After that, here comes the pharynx. And this pharynx is a common pathway. So it sends the food into the food pipe, which is the esophagus. So this is the food pipe. Now food pipe sends the food down to the stomach. Now once the food reaches the stomach, in stomach is present hydrochloric acid, which makes the environment inside the stomach acidic. In this acidic environment, the enzyme pepsin becomes active, and pepsin helps in digestion of proteins. So it breaks down complex proteins into less complex peptones or proteases. Right? Now from stomach, these partially digested food then enters into the small intestine, first part of the small intestine, which is duodenum. Now in this duodenum, there are two ducts. One is coming from the pancreas, and this is the pancreas, the hidden green colored structure, and through the pancreatic duct, pancreatic enzymes are released into the duodenum. Similarly, here you have liver, and liver secretes bile juice. Liver is going to secrete bile juice, which is stored in the gallbladder. So this is gallbladder. Now through this bile duct, the bile juice will also be secreted into the duodenum. So the bile juice will make the environment inside the duodenum alkaline, and this alkaline environment will activate the pancreatic enzymes and the intestinal enzymes, that is the small intestine enzymes. And these enzymes will further help in digestion of carbohydrates, proteins as well as fats. So complete digestion takes place in the small intestine. Also, there are hair-like structures called villi which are present in the small intestine, and they help in the absorption of the digested food. And then the absorbed food is passed on to the blood vessels where assimilation of food takes place. Finally, the undigested food is passed on to the large intestine. So this is the large intestine, all these parts. And here all the excess water is being absorbed, and finally the undigested food material is thrown out of the body through the anus in the form of feces. So that's how the entire process of nutrition works. Let us look at nutrition in some animals which primarily feed on grass, because I told you just now that different substances have different organisms have different fooding habits, and the different food items have different nutrient content. Now some food items are easy to be digested, some food items are difficult to be digested. So grass is again one such food item which contains a lot of cellulose, and cellulose is not very easy to be digested. So we will see how those animals which eat mostly on grass, how do they undergo the process of digestion. Now when we talk about grass eaters, can you think of the grass eating animals? So the first few animals that comes to your mind would be cow, deer, goat. So they are the primary grass eating animals. Cows, buffaloes, goats. So you will see that they mostly feed on plants. Not mostly, they actually only feed on plants. They do not feed on flesh or anything. So they are pure herbivorous animals. So here what we are interested to see is that how these animals are able to digest cellulose. What is special in these animals? Because cellulose is something which cannot be digested by human beings, and that is why human beings do not depend on plants or grasses primarily. We do eat some part of the plants, but we eat a lot of other stuffs like cereals, flesh, or many other pulses, cereals and all those stuff. So these animals are able to digest cellulose. So have you ever seen a cow that sometimes, even if there is no grass in the surroundings, but still sometimes you will see that it suddenly starts chewing something inside its mouth. If you closely observe how a cow eats, you will see that what they do is when they are eating grass, they will eat it, they will quickly swallow it for the time being. But again, after some time, the same grass which it had already swallowed, they bring it back inside their mouth and they start chewing it repeatedly. And that's how their process of digestion is little different from that of ours. So here in this section, we are actually trying to see what is different in the digestive system of the grass eaters. So if you look at this picture, it shows only the part that is different in their case. So they also have a food pipe, which is the esophagus, and they also have a small intestine, so the coiled tube-like structure, that is the small intestine. But if you see here, between the esophagus and the small intestine, they have a sac-like structure called rumen, and this rumen is not present in case of human beings. And this rumen plays the most important role in the digestion of cellulose. Now what happens is, when a cow eats grass, initially it just takes the grass inside, quickly swallows it. Now when it swallows it, what happens? This grass goes into the rumen. So it actually passes through the esophagus, and then instead of getting into the small intestine, it goes into the rumen, and it remains stored in the rumen temporarily for some time. Okay. Now again, after some time, this grass, the partially digested grass, this partially digested grass is given a term called cud. So cud is a term which is used for partially digested. So this cud is brought back to the mouth. So the same cud is again brought back to the mouth, and then the cow chews it again. So the animal chews it again, and this process of chewing is known as rumination. So this process is called rumination. That means bringing the partially digested food back from rumen into the mouth, where it is chewed again by the animal. And this is how the cellulose gets digested, because you are actually repeating the process of digestion 2 times, and that repetition is possible due to the presence of this extra sac-like structure rumen, which can temporarily store the partially digested food. But in case of human beings, once the food reaches the stomach, it goes into the small intestine and then it cannot come back. Right? So, and in one cycle, the cellulose cannot be digested because it is little difficult to get digested. Now, this cellulose, then when it remains in the rumen, what happens is that in rumen there are certain bacteria which are present. There are certain bacteria which are present in the rumen, and these bacteria act on the cellulose, and they help in the digestion of cellulose. In human beings, there is no rumen, there is no bacteria to digest cellulose. Therefore, cellulose cannot be digested in case of human beings. So this is how the digestive system of grass eaters are different from that of human beings. So they are specially designed to digest cellulose. So they have a large rumen which is present between the esophagus and small intestine.